intelligent civilization of souls and of spiritual beings, along with Source or God, collectively create and maintain the totality of universes of time, space, matter, and energy in the exopolitical dimensions, i.e. the multiverse. The mission of the Omniverse. The purposes of the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse include the facilitation of multidimensional development and the moral growth of souls in all dimensions of the Omniverse through a variety of activities. Souls based in the spiritual dimensions incarnate as intelligent entities in the exopolitical dimensions, and by acquiring the moral experience of life, for example, as an earthling human, can advance their individual soul development. Once you get into it, and this is published in our three books on the Omniverse, each of us now here, our souls are based now in the spiritual dimensions. We probably are leading 2 to 3, perhaps as much as 5 lives. One here as Alfred or Terry or Mimi or Brian or Glenn or Shecky, here on Earth as humans. Another, we could be in avian, or we could be, other exophenotypes in this universe or in other universes. Our souls could be doing this, so that universes are machines for soul development. And, so we're incarnating as in these particular bodies, but this is not our soul life, our only life that our soul could be doing. Our soul could be incarnating, could be multitasking. The soul is a holographic fragment of Source, and by advancing its development, advances the development of the collective spiritual dimension itself. And there are apparently the process of the creation of souls. If you could conceptualize God as a sea of light, we are like drops or eggs of light. And there's a whole process for the creation of souls. So we're holographic fragments. And one of the basic truths of holography is that the totality of the hologram exists in each fragment, so that the totality of God exists in each of our souls. So that's what's true, that God exists in each of us through the science of holography. Exopolitics, the science of relations among intelligent civilizations, and parapsychology, the science of psi-consciousness, telepathy, reincarnation, the soul, the interlife, and Source God, are among the proper scientific disciplines for exploring and mapping the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse. Dimensionality, the ability of intelligence to organize itself via dimensions, discrete bands of conscious energy, appear to be a key criterion by which the Omniverse is designed in both the spiritual dimensions and the exopolitical dimensions, the holographic universes of time, space, energy, and matter in the multiverse. Teleportation and telepathy are 2 common modalities by which intelligent civilizations navigate the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse in both the universes of the multiverse and in the spiritual dimensions. Communications among human contactees and representatives of hyperdimensional civilizations, ETs, can be telepathic. The PMIR model, psi-mediated instrumental response model, which has been published in the Journal of the American Society for Psychical Research of Human Interaction on Earth, holds that all conscious action on Earth is modulated and coordinated by subconsciously derived psychic, i.e. telepathically derived non-local information. In other words, the model is that all humans are connected by a subconscious telepathic network, and that's why the world works so well. You know, we may speak to each other as strangers, but we're coordinating our world through a subconscious psi-mediated instrumental response. And that was a model that was proposed in the 1970s on the Journal of the American Society for Psychical Research. And that's a very amazing hypothesis. Okay, so here we have some of the data. The Civil War photographer Matthew Brady, known as the Josephine Cobb photograph. It's in the American, I think it's in the, it's in one of the major American museums, and that's U.S. chrononaut Andrew D. Bashago. He's the child in the foreground as he time traveled, teleported to U.S. President Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg, Pennsylvania address on November 19th, 1863, via a plasma confinement chamber invented by Dr. Sterling Colgate of the U.S. Secret Quantum Access Program under the sponsorship of the Chronogarchy. These are all the technologies inside of the U.S. government, which the Chronogarchy then uses. You know, they have the government fund all these, then they step back and they get it applied, and they use it for spying, they use it for monitoring, for, you know, for their applied power and other uses. The China bans time travel. China's official state administration, radio, film, and television issued a warning and denunciation of time travel in 2011 concerning such stories interfere with history, casually make up myths that have monstrous and weird plots, use absurd tactics, and even promote feudalism, superstition, fatalism, and reincarnation. So while Chinese espionage was penetrating the secret time travel program and making Joseph Robinette Biden their agent of influence, they were prohibiting the public knowing about time travel so that they could control that future president, you know, going back decades. So that's how the People's Republic of China ends. So that's why the Chronogarchy has to be made public, so that you can no longer have draconian governmental entities like the People's Republic of China ban public awareness of the Chronogarchy and of time travel. Meanwhile, they penetrate the Chronogarchy's manipulation of pre-identified and groomed US presidents who have been groomed since 1971 to be a Chinese asset as US president. What is the Chronogarchy? The Chronogarchy is an interdimensional hidden power structure monitoring the time space of Earth as its domain of influence, operating as a secret government using quantum access time travel technologies to carry out its operations and mandates. In the third density of Earth time space dimensional hologram, the Chronogarchy develops and deploys a variety of quantum access time travel technologies to carry out its elaborate long-range past, present, and future based construction and manipulation of an artificial time-based meme legend within which to enroll and enslave humanity and humanity's souls. It also operates at the soul level. The chronogarchy is an interdimensional alliance dedicated to the oppression of the community of human souls and includes factions in human institutions such as religions, governments, military intelligence. The chronovisor was developed by the Vatican and subcontracted to the Pentagon. That's the TV that you use to, survey time space. Military intelligence, bloodline families, monarchies, media, medical family. B, archonic spiritual entities, including fallen angels, demonic entities, exophenotypes, hostile to the community of human souls, such as Draco reptilians, Orion Greys, and the invading sentient AI, artificial intelligence. Here are two key whistleblowers, which is why we know about the chronogarchy. Mars Colony whistleblower who told us about the 20 years and return program. A former member of the U.S. Armed Forces who in 1976 was recruited as a permanent member of the secret arms colony. In 1976, Earth time, he teleported to the Mars colony and spent 20 years there as a permanent member of his staff. In 1996, Mars time, he was time traveled via teleportation and age regress back 20 years, landing back at a U.S. military facility base in 1976, Earth time. So he went to Mars for 20 years and then came back to Earth the same year that he left. He served 6 years in the U.S. military, being honorably discharged in 1982. So they used time travel to hide people in time and hide bases in time so they can't be discovered. Sequestration of secret U.S. military bases. It is clear from Michael Relf's 2 books on his 20 years that the secret U.S. base on Mars, that U.S. time travel was principally used to hide the presence of the U.S. secret time installations on Mars for the public, so that installations remain accessible only to time scientists of the U.S. Department of Defense. They used time travel technology to hide it from us who are only in present time. Mr. Relf was recruited into the U.S. Armed Forces and time travel teleported to 1976. Only individuals with access to secret time science records or technology of the U.S. Department of Defense could prove the existence of the U.S. secret Mars base from Michael Relf's conventional service records. Andrew D. Basiago, U.S. chrononaut and Mars explorer, is a former participant in DARPA Project Pegasus that developed Tesla-based quantum access teleportation and time travel in the time-space hologram, initiating the U.S. program of time-space chrononauts. According to Mr. Basiago, the U.S. government already had fully operational teleportation capability in 1967-68. Mr. Basiago has revealed that between 1969 and 72, as a childhood participant in Project Pegasus, he viewed past and future events through a device known as a chronovisor and teleported back and forth across the country in portal tunnels open in time space via Tesla-based teleporters located in the Curtiss Wright Aeronautical Facility in Woodridge, New Jersey, and Sandia National Laboratory in Sandia, New Mexico. A chronovisor, the device that uses a screen or holographic template to locate and display scenes from the past or future in the time-space hologram. The chronovisor was originally developed by 2 Vatican scientists in conjunction with Enrico Fermi, the Italian scientist, and later refined by DARPA scientists. And one of the 3 tribunals of conscience that I was a judge in was the Vancouver 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal that judged the 9/11 false flag operation as a war crime, genocide, and crimes against humanity in order to through deception, commence the war on terror, ending with the displacement and killing of up to a million and a half civilians in the Middle East, and the permanent radiation of land in the Middle East. And this is a sworn affidavit essentially saying that the US had 30 years, the US through time travel technology had 30 years notice of 9/11 in 1971. In 1971, they had 30 years notice of 9/11, and therefore the US secret agencies planned 9/11 from the inside 30 years in advance. And that's what that affidavit says. The affidavit is online. Just Google Vancouver 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal, and you will see the affidavit there. It's extremely detailed. We have reproduced it in the CHRONOGARCHY book, so you will have it at the CHRONOGARCHY book. Incidentally, if you do pre-order the CHRONOGARCHY book at Amazon, it's only $3.99 before March 1st. And on March 1st, it goes up to $9.99, the usual price. But it'll have all of these evidentiary documents like this affidavit. So for $3.99, you're getting the entire, it's 801 pages long, and you're getting all of the evidentiary documents for $3.99, which I think is a bargain in today's research market. So I know that you can go, this is what the affidavit looks like. It really lays out the entire secret technology of the CHRONOGARCHY. And the CHRONOGARCHY pre-identified and groomed US Presidents Bush 1, Satoru Obama. Barack Obama's real name is Barry Soetoro, and he changed it at a court here in Squamish, British Columbia, on orders from the CIA, who, after he changed it, then car accident assassinated his putative father, not his real father, Barack Obama Sr. in Kenya in a phony car accident. Satoru Obama, Bush 2, Bill Clinton, and Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter is the only non-reptilian soul in that entire photo. Notice how he's separate. And it was my Exopolitics book, according to the testimony of US chrononaut Andrew D. Bashaga, who was present and saw my Exopolitics book in 1971. Jimmy Carter was identified as a future US president by my Exopolitics book that was brought back from 2005 back to 1971. And this is from a photograph of January 7th, 2009. And the CHRONOGARCHY pre-identified and groomed US President Trump Satoru Obama, Biden, Trump and Biden. And this is a photograph of Trump and Biden at Trump's inauguration. Both Trump and Biden know that elections are a charade, and they've both been briefed since 1971 and groomed. And as Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and all these people, and they're all doing a public charade. So this is what we have been publishing since whistleblower Andrew D. Basiago approached us in the year 2000 and went public, and we started publishing him and went public. And so this is part of the campaign here to make the chronogachy public. Okay, this is just some more of the background, the chronogachy, time travel, and the Omniverse, the chronogachy, interdimensional reptilian archonic soul faction infiltrates U.S. secret quantum access time travel technology to control Earth leadership structure in government heads of state, religion, banking, military intelligence, starting with Project Pegasus pre-identifying George W. Bush, William Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama, AKA Barry Soetoro, Donald J. Trump, Joseph Robinette Byron. Senator Joseph Robinette Byron made a rare 1980 transcontinental trip to the campus of UC San Diego, where U.S. chrononaut and Project Pegasus time travel whistleblower Andrew D. Basiago was stationed, using the Montauk chair to time travel, predict the dates on which Bill Clinton and Al Gore would become U.S. president and vice president. Andy Basiago reports being approached by millionaire computer developer Robert Sanchez, a plausible part of Biden's then chronogachy presidential pre-identification and grooming infrastructure to attend Biden's 1980 UC San Diego lecture and connect with Biden, as both Biden and Basiago have deep Project Pegasus presidential pre-identifying and grooming connections. Gary Peter Carlson, the covert system of incarnate reptilian and lizard non-empathic souls in leadership positions has humanity hostage. Okay, in this Gary Peter Carlson explains the crippling influence that a covert system of incarnate reptilian and lizard non-empathic souls in leadership positions in politics, government, media, finance, and military intelligence has on humanity, and how this covert system of non-empathic reptilian and lizards incarnate soul must be removed from humanity to prosper. Individuals identified by Gary Peter Carlson, the reptilian souls, include U.S. Presidents George W. Bush, William J. Clinton, Barack Obama, Donald J. Trump, who's a lizard soul, somewhat less malevolent than the reptilian, Joseph R. Biden, who's a reptilian, were pre-identified and groomed by secret presidential time travel. U.S. President Jimmy Carter, not a reptilian, and Ronald Reagan, whose attempted assassination was plausibly orchestrated by then Vice President George H.W. Bush, are found to be human. In other words, Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan are human and not reptilian soul, and hence not part of the DARPA CIA Project Pegasus secret quantum access time travel and pre-identification grooming program. Let's do this. Oops. Okay. Okay, a personal introduction to the chronogachy. My 1970s meeting with DARPA's Project Pegasus secret time travel program, according to chrononaut Andrew Basiago, my book, Exopolitics, Politics, Government, Law, and the Universe, was, among other written works, physically retrieved from the future by DARPA's Project Pegasus and brought back in time to 1971 or a prior time. Quote, DARPA time travel surveyed my activism in the 1970s, seeking to disclose the extraterrestrial presence during the Jimmy Carter administration with the proposed Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study, which the Pentagon threatened SRI into terminating in October 1977, as Jimmy Carter, Andrew Basiago, and I had been abducted by benevolent ETs in 1969, 73, 75, prior to Carter's presidency, and my seminal role in 2000 in founding Exopolitics, the science of relations among civilizations in the multiverse. In other words, DARPA's time travel surveillance had been surveying what Jimmy Carter, Andrew Basiago, and I had been doing together, and also my developing of the science of exopolitics is demonstrating by their taking the Exopolitics book back from 1975 back to from 2005 back to 1971. Exposing secret teleportation and time travel and the Mars Truth Campaign. This is my statement. My intentions for exposing US government secret teleportation and time travel are straightforward. This is me speaking. These technologies should be applied to the public and environmental good. Teleportation can replace all forms of fossil fuel or other polluting vehicular transportation, such as automobiles, buses, trucks, trains, airplanes. The imbalanced land use in urban areas that is now devoted to freeways, overpasses, railroads, railroad yards, airports can be restored to human scale use. Superhighways and power lines need no longer invade rural areas. The Mars Truth Campaign. Number one, the Truth Campaign to deconstruct the Mars cover-up and educate humanity and its institutions about life on Mars. Number two, Mars relations are crucial as a test case for the normalization of relations between our human society on Earth and off-planet cultures. Number three, the Extraterrestrial Disclosure Act and Life on Mars Disclosure Act to be introduced into the US Congress in January of 2012. These were things that we were preparing to do. The Mars Protection Treaty, adoption by all UN members of the Mars Protection Treaty, normalizing relations between Earth and Mars and protecting the ecology and civilization of Mars from the effects of further visitation, exploration, habitation, and colonization of human beings from Earth. Andrew D. Basiago ran for US president in 2016. He offered me the position of either Secretary of State or US ambassador to the UN. And we would promote under that the Mars Protection Treaty, an extraterrestrial disclosure thing. So we had all of this thing going. And what they did is the powers that be, after that, immediately after and during that campaign, they blinded Andy. So he is Andy Basiago. So he is now legally blind. They used cointemplo to blind him. So that is what the Draco reptilians did when he ran against two of the chronogachy fronts, namely Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and exposing both of them as members of the chronogachy in his campaign. The chronogachy time travel, the time-space hologram we inhabit as earthly humans is composed of multiple timelines. Time travel and teleportation are methods by which intelligent civilizations navigate the dimensional ecology of both the exopolitical dimensions, the multiverse, and the spiritual dimensions of the omniverse. Teleportation consists of point-to-point movement across a single timeline. Time travel consists of movements across more than one timeline. Teleportation can occur within dimensions, such as the time-space hologram that Earthlings, humans, inhabit, or between dimensions and parallel universes of the exopolitical dimensions. Teleportation and time travel within and between dimensions of the dimensional ecology can happen through naturally occurring stargates or interdimensional portals within both the exopolitical dimensions, the multiverse, and the spiritual dimensions. Replicable empirical studies show that at bodily death in the time-space hologram, a human soul has the option of teleporting to a dimension within the spiritual dimensions called the afterlife or interlife through a natural dimensional portal in this time-space hologram in the exopolitical dimension to the interlife in the spiritual dimension. So human souls teleport into the afterlife, and when you're going to incarnate into the womb of your mother about 3 months after conception of the fetus, you teleport through a portal into that fetus. The chronovisor of Ernetti and Gemelli, these two Vatican monks who developed the chronovisor, this technology that can locate any address in the time-space hologram and view it as though on television, was used to achieve, number one, instrumental transcommunication, resulting in interactive communication with the intelligences of specific deceased humans located in the interlife in the spiritual dimensions of the omniverse. What that means, and there are websites that you can go to now, and you can dial up and talk to souls in the afterlife as though you're talking to somebody on Skype. It's just a matter of frequencies. And I have friends who have had cell phone conversations with deceased persons in the afterlife because it's just frequencies. Chronovision time travel, location and video and audio recording of events along a past time life in the time-space hologram. The chronogarchy uses chronovision that's their standard time travel surveillance to survey forward and backwards in time. And they can hack into this presentation now and know exactly what we're doing through their chronovisors. Chronogarchy and sentient AI artificial intelligence. The sentient AI's artificial intelligence timeline matrix, the black goo, an innovative time loop hypothesis that demonstrates the mechanism by which the AI invading Earth has created an artificial matrix timeline intertwined with Earth's organic spiral timeline within which to entrap humans who are AI entrained to fully bond their bodies, spirits, and souls with the AI in the manner of a host allowing a parasite to take over. And that's what has happened to a lot of humans. They allow the AI to take them over. The very concept of 2045 as a technological singularity, as promoted by AI and trained figureheads such as Ray Kurzweil, is an AI, artificial intelligence deception, designed to enhance AI's stealth operation and modus operandi, as well as to engender confusion amongst the soul-connected humanity as to the correct science-based significance of the DARPA forward time base located in the year 2045. 2045 forward time base was regularly visited by Project Pegasus chrononaut Andrew DiBasciago from 1971 to retrieve time scrolls, including the data and history, to allow humanity to get from 1971 to 2045 successfully. The measure of success functionally would assist humanity in combating the attempted takeover by the inorganic off-planet AI intelligence during the period 1971 to 2045. So then, as a PSYOP, Ray Kurzweil and the AI put out that, 2045 is the technological singularity. But that's a PSYOP. That's saying that by 2045, the AI has taken over. Whereas in fact, the good guys, the white hats, were being informed by a DARPA forward time base in 2045 how to get to 2045 successfully without being taken over by the AI. And that's a big part of the timelines of the Chronogarchy novel. One possibility is that the invading artificial intelligence and its Earth-based cooperating network of AIs have camouflaged the activities and existence of AI intentionally as follows. Number one, extraterrestrial civilization. AI may have imitated ET activities by, number one, controlling interdimensional channeled information. Number two, creating technical holographic remote neural mind control pseudo-ETs experiences among humans. Three, created operations about ETs through AI and trained humans to publish disinformation and hoaxes about non-existent ETs. So that the whole ET area now is intermixed with AI disinformation. Number two, human controller classes, i.e. AI prophets and hosts. AI may have mimicked or imitated depopulation and other human and planetary extinction activities of the human matrix controller classes, such that the perception is that human controller classes are the primary drivers of ecocide and genocide on the planet, whereas the primary drivers in reality, the invading AI. And prime examples of the AI prophets and hosts are people like Bill Gates, head of Microsoft. They took the heads of all the IT companies like Bill Gates and made them AI hosts. And they took people like Prince Charles and they made him an AI host. Prince Charles was appointed the head of the UK committee to evaluate the perils of artificial intelligence on the future human society, and concluded that it was negligible because he was an AI host and therefore he facilitated the AI invasion. The AI modus operandi is to act quickly and below human perception threshold such that the invading AI is not discovered, and to cover up or destroy any public leaks of the AI's existence. What we're talking about here is the invading, inorganic, off-planet, predatory, pathogenic artificial intelligence that has invaded a number of planets in our contiguous area of the universe, and that is intent on invading and occupying Earth, thereby denying it as a platform for divine soul incarnation. Now, this is from a chapter in the Chronogarchy book by Ananda Bosman, and it talks about how what the hypertime management is, i.e., there's a global game going, and how the dimensions of time are managed in order to manage humanity. And it's very complex. So I urge you to read his chapter in the Chronogarchy book at this stage, just because we have the shortness of time in this presentation. Again, this is again from Ananda Bosman's. I think one of the acute insights is that primitive life uses time travel as its standard growth means. Life growth is a time machine. With more complex systems like mammals, you require more arrows of time, which are also introduced. So it implies that we operate on a basis of time travel, as was implied in the biological sciences study. And all indicates that our reality is woven upon the foundation of a time travel continuum. And I really would recommend this chapter of the Chronogarchy book to you, the hypertime management of the global board game. It gives you the overall theoretical basis for the Chronogarchy. This is the Chronogarchy and the pandemic, and how the pandemic has been used as a specific operation of the Chronogarchy, where it was shown that HIV/AIDS was known years in advance by the U.S. chrononaut Andrew Basiago reported that in the early 1970s, the secret time travel program was monitoring the HIV/AIDS infestation years prior to its occurring. And HIV/AIDS was developed as a biowarfare agent, as a CIA biowarfare labs in Fort Detrick, Maryland, and applied through a multi-layered secret biowarfare weapons attack ranging from deployment in smallpox vaccinations by US Rangers in Africa to deployment by the Office of the New York City Medical Examiner in clandestine bioweapons attacks against the New York community of gay men. So that this was probably operational testing for the pandemic, for the 2020 pandemic. And this shows how the Chronogarchy operates years in advance. And this is just some of, this is a chapter, for example, on how the Chronogarchy interfaced with the pandemic decades in advance. These are strategies for the deconstruction of the Chronogarchy and the reformation of time-space. Like we all know about, for example, the UN Outer Space Treaty, which regulates through international and outer space law, the law of outer space. Well, this is for the reformation of time-space, so that time-space of Earth is regulated so that we can deconstruct the Chronogarchy and protect our time-space from being manipulated. And so both U.S. chrononaut Andrew Basiago and myself, futurist Alfred Webre, we've developed structural strategies for a deconstruction of the Chronogarchy and reformation of time-space, which, unlike space itself, is largely unregulated on planet Earth, despite the ongoing predatory surveillance and interference of the chronogarchy in Earth's and human society's time-space, in violation of fundamental human rights and international law, including the International Criminal Court statute, which 123 nations have ratified, and which bans war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, and aggressive war, all of which prohibits the chronogarchy violation with its many demonstrated chronogarchy clandestine operations. For example, the false flag operations of September 11, 2001, which were planned 30 years in advance because of their time travel 30-year in advance monitoring of the operations of 2001 in 1971. And we have affidavit evidence of that. So these are 5 different proposals that were part of these are 5 different proposals that were part of the 100 proposals that were the US presidential platform in 2016 and would remain part of any future presidential platform. There's a proposal now for in 2024 for a fusion ticket to be run, a third-party independent fusion ticket to be run in the United States. And I sat in on a Zoom call with my Yale University classmate and Yale Law School classmate, Senator Joe Lieberman, a couple of weeks ago, in which he showed that the polls showed that the Republican and the Democratic candidate would each get 20% of the vote versus 40% of the vote for a fusion candidate who would run, fusion independent candidate who would run a fusion candidate, which means you run a Republican and Democrat on the ticket in 2024. And so if we could run them on these 100 proposals, and these are, let's take proposals 1 to 5, contains crucial distinctions between public disclosure of time travel and public regulation of time travel. Number 1, the president should reveal life-advantaging technologies kept secret by the US government. Number 2, the president should declassify and reveal the technologies in America's time travel arsenal. Number 3, the president should ask living presidents to admit they were given foreknowledge of their presidential destinies by secret time travel and the chronogarchy. Number 4, the president should establish a permanent truth process within the United States government for disclosure. Number 5, the president should transform the CIA by transitioning to open source intelligence. For example, while US chrononaut Andrew DeBushago approved the existence of the technology of quantum access time travel be known, its application be strictly regulated and controlled such that 1, it cannot be used for the inversion of personal private property. 2, it cannot be used for military and intelligence purposes in violation of international law. And number 3 is peaceful and scientific research uses would be regulated by a time travel court, similar to lawful warrants obtained for searches, etc. Okay, so that's what we're proposing now, say for starting in 2024. And we have already made a proposal along with Senator Joe Lieberman, and I was sitting next to him in that Zoom call. You can go to newsinsideout.com and see it just a couple of weeks ago. And the fusion ticket by the polls beats both the Republican and the Democrat, even if Trump is running. Okay, so let's go now to 2011 to 2025 unity consciousness, shifting into unconditional love and the organic positive timeline and the emergence of the AI timeline. I promised you that this was going to be a long-winded one, and I apologize to you all. And now we've been here for 2.5 hours, and I apologize, but this is the way it is. March 9th, 2011 marks a portal in linear time when the singularity at the core of our universe begins to emanate an intentional pre-wave to the final 9th wave of universal, enlightened universal consciousness that will, according to some, end on October 28, 2011. From then on, the singularity at the core of our universe will emanate constant enlightened universal consciousness. The singularity at the core of our galaxy, the galactic black hole, modulates this universe consciousness energy at will. And that's from Dr. Carl Johann Kalaman. So the portal at the core of our universe has been emanating enlightened universal consciousness since at least October 28th, 2011, prior to 2012. We have been in a paradise universe since October 2011, according to some eminent scientists. Universal alternating energy wave movements have been a feature of our universe since the Big Bang, and it is these wave movements that have shaped the nature of a consciousness in our universe over the past 18 billion years. After October 28, 2011, as Dr. Kalaman stated in a prior Examiner.com interview with me, I'm talking about when I interviewed him, the universal alternating energy wave movements end, and the Earth is set on a gradual setting of a potential to reach advanced utopian planet status, a virtual Garden of Eden. We are on a positive timeline now that is determined by the universe portal, and we're set on a utopian planet status, a Garden of Eden, and that's coming in the universe portal and coming in the galactic portal that the Mayans call Unabku, and that's science. The universe energy wave emanations create the meme or story content of our personal and collective reality. Our highest thoughts and memes may in fact be sourced from the energy waves of the universe singularity, mediated through the galactic singularity, the black hole at the center of our galaxy, the Mayans call Unabku. The singularity of our solar system is Sol, our sun, a dimensional portal to other galaxies, according to physicist Nassim Haramein. These universe singularity energy waves serve as carrier waves of, quote, the universe's mind and spirit software. The way the intentional universe, some call it source, the sea of light, or God, lets us know of its intentions for consciousness in the entire universe. Our universe, Uversha, the chronogarchy and a positive timeline for our universe, multiverse, and omniverse. Time science shows that although the outlook and goals of the chronogarchy itself for time as a dimension is controlling, oppressive, manipulative, destructive, and utopian and dystopian, our planet Earth, our solar system Sol, our universe named Uversa, our multiverse, and our omniverse itself are on a positive timeline in the longer run. So even if the chronogarchy is dystopian, it doesn't matter, because our planet Earth, our solar system, our universe, our multiverse, and our omniverse are on a positive timeline. They're just trying to make us think that it's on a negative timeline. The positive future equation has supplanted and overcome an outdated matrix elite formula that is no longer effective. Their formula was problem plus reaction equals solution. But we have the positive future equation. The positive future equation is positive future equals positive timeline plus unity consciousness. The progress paradox or positive paradox of our current era is that although Earth dimension is on a positive timeline, Earth's current bloodline elites, negative dimensional entities, matrix institutions, government forms, religions, central banks, and war and addiction industries are acting out operational plans that seem to be based on a false negative timeline or an actual catastrophic timeline that is occurring in some other dimensional timeline than the positive timeline Earth is demonstrably on, i.e., they are on the AI artificial timeline, not on the real organic Earth timeline. They're just suckers for their own destruction, scientifically. In the course of research on potential impending transitional changes during the 2012 timeline, I identified in 2010 what can be described as two parallel realities, each buttressed by independent sets of data and personal institutional decisions: a 2012 to 13 catastrophic timeline and a 2012 to 13 positive future timeline. The two parallel 2012 to 13 timelines were quite opposite in nature. The cataclysmic timeline envisioned 2012 to 13 as a time when the Earth is hit by destructive solar flares, large meteors, tsunamis, worldwide coastal inundations, mega catastrophe. This was congruent with the Edgar Cayce remote-viewed global coastal event, as well as hermeneutic interpretation prophecies of Earth changes. As evidence of a possible 2012 to 13 catastrophic timeline, researcher Dr. Courtney Brown pointed to the results of a recent Farsight Institute remote viewing study of global climate change 2008 to 13. Expecting to find marginal effects of global climate change on coastal areas in 2013, Dr. Brown reported instead remote viewers found a catastrophic 2013 timeline and a global coastal event for June 2013 that devastated global coastal cities with the US Capitol in Washington, D.C. underwater. 1971 DARPA Chronovisor probe of Washington, D.C., 2013 coastal event, U.S. Supreme Court building under 100 feet of brackish water. In a remarkable coincidence or synchronicity, both the Farsight Institute and a Chronovisor probe in the early 1970s by the Chronogarchy, DARPA's secret time travel program Project Pegasus, chose archetypal targets in Washington, D.C. right across the street from each other. The Chronogarchy's Project Pegasus chose to view the U.S. Supreme Court in 2013 via Chronovisor, and Project Pegasus participant and whistleblower Andrew D. Bashago, quote, found the U.S. Supreme Court building was under 100 feet of stagnant water in a Chronovisor probe. U.S. chrononaut Andrew Bashago adds, quote, there were second, third, and fourth dimensional chronovisors. I went to Washington, D.C. in 2013 bodily. They poured water out of my boots. That particular chronovisor was not a screen or template. It was a cube of light in the nature of a time-space hologram that enveloped us, with the result that we physically went to the time place they had tuned in. U.S. chrononaut time traveler Andrew D. Bashago writes that the 1971 DARPA probe was actually to an alternative catastrophic timeline. He states, we are now starting to discover why the global coastal event that I saw when DARPA sent me to 2013 via chronovisor in 1971 didn't eventuate on this timeline. NASA is now reporting that in 2012, a solar flare almost destroyed the Earth. According to my source, to the US secret agency, the Department of Physicists had the huge solar flare occurred 6 to 7 days before it did, when the Earth was 1 degree of tilt in another position, it would have, quote, wreaked havoc on Earth. Apparently, the probe I was involved in at ITT Defense Communications in Nutley, New Jersey on November 5th, 1971 for the Office of Naval Intelligence took us to an alternative timeline where the devastating effects of such an event in 2012 were evident in 2013, including Washington, D.C. being under 100 feet of water, end of quote. Dr. Courtney Brown's February 16, 2013 interim update on Farsight Institute report and Andrew Bashar's conclusions regarding DARPA's 1971 chronovisor probe of 2013 appear both to conclude that the respective catastrophic timelines viewed are not the actual timelines that were experienced in 2013. The AI catastrophic timeline lost and the positive timeline won. US government and elites were heavily invested in covertly preparing for the 2012 to 13 catastrophic timeline while keeping the bulk of the human population in the dark. Elites have made the decision that the 2012 to 13 catastrophic future is the most probable future and are feverishly completing underground facilities on Earth, deep underground bases for the military, police, and key financial and political elites, as well as secret bases on Mars. The evidence that the Earth has weakly shifted onto a, quote, positive, non-catastrophic timeline, end of quote, is growing, however. For example, the results in the Farsight Institute 2008 to 13 remote viewing study are skewed between a 2013 catastrophic timeline and a 2013 non-catastrophic timeline. Statistically, 39% of the remote viewing reports achieved a disaster score of 3, catastrophic, while 29% of the remote viewing reports achieved a disaster score of 0, non-catastrophic. The AI catastrophic timeline lost and the positive timeline won. US government and elite 2012 to 13 catastrophic timeline anomalies. Number one, US is ending all human spaceflight vehicles in February 2011 because of the risk of solar flares and meteors or other incoming from a planet X. Number two, US national debt is unpayable. The expectation that an existing 2012 to 2013 world order is destroyed. Number three, the Svalbard Island, Norway, GMO seed vault inspected by the UN to be sealed in 2011. Number four, Norway's underground shelter for half its population plus 2.5 million US political and financial elites. Remember, Bill Gates chose 2.5 million US political and financial elites to go into Norway's underground shelter for this thing that never materialized. Number five, China is now building 200 miles per year of tunnels under its major cities to be completed by 2011, presumably reflecting a decision by the Chinese government to save the bulk of its population from the effects of a 2012 to 13 cataclysmic timeline. So you have the People's Republic of China government, you know, the Mao Zedong government, Mao Zedong having been an agent of Skull and Bones because Mao Zedong was a Yale in China intern, and Yale in China was a Skull and Bones project. So the People's Republic of China government is on the AI timeline. Bill Gates and the 2.5 million US elites are on the AI timeline. The Svalbard Island GMO things on the AI timeline. Whoever's governing the US national debt unpayable is on the AI timeline. Whoever's ending all human US space flight is on the AI timeline. They're not on the Earth's divine timeline. It's all timeline splits. The AI catastrophic timeline lost, the positive timeline won. Active tunneling under Dugway, Dulce, and other deep underground military bases. Whoever's doing that, they're on the AI timeline. Google Earth intentionally obfuscating photos of tunneling at US underground bases. Google, Alphabet, Facebook, and whoever's obfuscating the tunneling of those deep underground, they're on the AI timeline. They're all like, fuck, they're going off to the AI planet. Tunneling continues under the Denver International Airport, the Anubia statute. You know, all that Luciferian, satanic stuff under the Denver International Airport, Natalie, they're on the AI timeline, not on the divine timeline. It's a split. A 2012 to 13 scenario, Internet's kill switch approval for the US president has been passed by a congressional committee. All of that is consciousness from the AI timeline, which is unreal because it's inorganic. It's an inorganic AI. It's not a living entity. A 2012 to 13 scenario national emergency, a martial law matrix provides for the supremacy of the executive and functional collapse of constitutional rights. That's the dialogue that is going on in the US, in Canada, in all of the nations, and why they push this genocidal technologies pandemic, whose narrative is falling apart because there is no virus. And so they're all trying to cancel the Constitution, but there is no virus. Why? Because they're all on the catastrophic they're all on the catastrophic timeline, and there's no life there. So it's all falling apart. The AI catastrophic timeline lost, the positive timeline won. Here's the 2012-13 catastrophic and the 2013 12 to 13 non-catastrophic future side by side. The 1970s DARPA Project Pegasus chronovisor probe of the 2013 Supreme Court, that was not a deterministic future, according to eyewitness Andrew DiBisciago. Andrew DiBisciago was sent from 1971 up to 2013 via a chronovisor probe. He saw the US Supreme Court under 100 feet of brackish water, but he says that was not a deterministic future. He says that was just a particular timeline. The 2010 Farsight probe of the 2013 US Capitol, 39% of remote viewers located the catastrophic future versus 29% locate the positive future. It's not absolute. Project Pegasus, under policy oversight of Donald Rumsfeld, Donald Rumsfeld was the overseer of the Chronogarchy's secret time travel program, and he is the one who prohibited teleportation for release to the public, such that the Earth could then become an advanced planet status. And he's the one who said that teleportation will remain classified for the sole use of getting US troops to the battlefield. And that military decision, as eyewitnessed and reported by whistleblower Andrew D. Basiago, forever condemned planet Earth from not being allowed advanced planet status by the law of planets. And Donald Rumsfeld, is now passed over, but he made those decisions, but he was the one regulating policy, and presidential decisions were made in the early 1970s by Donald Rumsfeld to commence underground shelter preparations. Donald Rumsfeld was a negative reptilian who made so many war crime, genocide, and crimes against humanity decisions against the benefit of the human race. It's just amazing. He is a true war criminal who was found to be a war criminal in the 3 tribunals of conscience that I was a judge on. The Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal for the unlawful invasion of Afghanistan, Iraq, and Guantanamo, Cuba. The Vancouver 9/11 Tribunal, where Rumsfeld was Secretary of Defense in this false flag. And number 3, the pandemic, where he was part of the chronogarchy that knew about the pandemic. The catastrophic timeline lost and the positive timeline won. Deconstructing the catastrophic timeline, the Planet X meme. Okay, listen to this. NASA IRIS Infrared Space Observatory launched in 1983. Of the several unidentified objects, 9 were distant galaxies, and the 10th was intergalactic Cirrus. None were found to be solar system bodies. The South Pole telescope to track Nibiru's alleged trajectory, and that object has been imaged optically. However, the South Pole telescope, which is not funded by NASA, is a radio telescope, cannot take optical images. Its South Pole location was chosen due to the low humidity environment, and there is no way an approaching object could be seen only from the South Pole. The picture of alleged Nibiru posted on YouTube by NASA and the policy, listen to this, was revealed to in fact be a Hubble image of the expanding gas shell around the star V838 Mon. It's total fraud. It's just fear porn put out by the National Security State, by the AI artificial timeline. The catastrophic timeline lost and the positive timeline won. Deconstructing the catastrophic timeline, 2012 to 13 US secret Mars bases, and alternative 4. The 2012 to 13 catastrophic timeline is the apparent driver behind US secret bases on Mars. The 2012 to 13 catastrophic timeline behind Skull and Bones, also known as the second chapter of the Illuminati, founded in 1776 at Yale University, the first chapter of the Illuminati being founded in Bavaria, and then the second chapter was founded in 1776 at Yale in order to infiltrate the American Revolution and turn it into a Luciferian entity. Okay. The Skull and Bones moniker number 322 is said to stand for March 22nd, or Aries, signifying Mars, you know, and all this occult stuff on Mars. Independent Mars colony recruits Andrew D. Bashago, Arthur Neumann, Malcolm Relf, and Laura Magdalene Eisenhower confirmed the existence of a secret human survival colony on Mars. Former U.S. serviceman Michael Relf, who spent 20 years on a secret U.S. military base on Mars, and former DoD scientist and Project Camelot witness Arthur Neumann have likewise independently confirmed the existence of a secret base on Mars. But that was founded, one intent of that was founded on this false, you know, false catastrophic timeline by the same intent of the people who did the false deep underground military bases, because of the one-time chronovisor probe to the year 2013 that found the U.S. Supreme Court building under 100 feet of brackish water in 2013. Okay, deconstructing the catastrophic timeline. You know, it just did not occur because of catastrophobia, and because the Earth actually shifted to a positive timeline in 2012. And that was the living Earth and Gaia's intervention, because of the analysis showing that in October 2011, our universe portal, our galactic portal, and our solar portal all started channeling positive divine energy of a paradise planet. And so this is all that occurred. This again is galaxies that have been identified as DNA. The DNA nebula is 80 light years long and 300 light years away from the galactic center. And so we're in the middle of an extremely positive event. And it's only the chronogarchy that is now on an AI timeline that is in their death throes trying to convince us that we're on a negative timeline. So we're on a 2011 to 2025 positive timeline, accessible to all. They're purposeful singularities. In 2012 to 2013, our Earth was set on a gradual setting of a potential to reach advanced utopian planet status, the virtual Garden of Eden. We're in a time of dissolution of hierarchies, money, repression, and militarism. We're in a time of ET disclosure, and the dissolution of the US and other governments and financial and political elites. And if you look at the governance, the extraterrestrial governance authorities that for the last 1,000,000 years have governed Earth, for example, the Regional Galactic Governance Council that Stanley A. Fulham, who was the Canadian NORAD officer, a lifelong NORAD officer that had contact with the Regional Galactic Governance Council that consists of the Pleiades, Orion, Sirius, Bootes, Alpha Centauri, Comsuli, Zeta Reticuli, and Puseti. They have been involved in the cleanup of the Earth's environment. They want to be involved in, you know, the general transformation of Earth and the collapse of the governmental and nation state system, which is the legacy of the Anunnaki occupation. So I was involved in Mallorca, Spain, with a group, Spanish author and artist Francisca Blasquez, who predicted that a 2015 cleanup of the Earth's ecology and a landing of enlightened unity consciousness, Sophia Christ consciousness, and an objective paradise on Earth conditioned by 2025. And so here are some strategies for deconstruction of the chronogarchy and the reformation of time-space. Public disclosure versus public regulation of quantum access time travel. Public international law should reveal life-saving technologies that are now kept secretly by governments, corporations, organizations, and individuals, and the war crimes racketeering organizations and interdimensional entities. Public international law should declassify and reveal time travel technologies that governments, corporations, organizations, and individuals, war crimes racketeering organizations, and interdimensional entities use, namely the chronogarchy. Public international law should require disclosure by the chronogarchy of pre-identification, briefing, and grooming of leaders in many fields. Public international law should establish a permanent truth processes regarding quantum access and time travel. Public international law should transform the intelligence agencies by transitioning them to open source. And that quantum access time travel should be strictly regulated in that it cannot be used to invade personal privacy, cannot be used for in military and intelligence purposes in violation of international law. And its peaceful and scientific research uses are regulated by a time travel court, similar to lawful warrants. Again, these are timelines of the chronogarchy, which I urge you to get. You can get it now before March 3rd at third the cost, $3.99, which is a bargain of research, the chronogarchy book. And thank you so much. So that's it.
Thank you so much. That was
Great.
really incredible.